Welcome back to the shop, everybody. We're going to be out here playing with the CNC and MillMage today. Got an order for a catch-all tray, so I'm going to go ahead and rebuild this design in MillMage. I already had it done in carve, but we're going to reprogram this thing and knock our project out with MillMage. If I knew how much I was going to like this little rascal, I would have put it together a long time ago. I got a couple 5-gallon buckets with the cyclone separator. I got the dual cyclone separator. This section over here takes out the finer particles and separates it so it doesn't start floating around in the air. And of course, I got it hooked up to the old Harbor Freight shop vac. Got 20 foot of this hose here, 2.5 inch hose, and I 3D printed a little adapter to slide in there. And this one, this adapter I got to slide in there. I got 20 foot of this 2.5 inch hose, cut it in half, and I got one in going to my floor attachment. And I can just slide that out. I need to build me a Y here with some blast gates, I guess. But I got another 3D printed part that goes over that inlet. Don't ask me why I done one or the other. But anyway, and that goes to the router. And that rascal has been, and that's been pretty cool right there. I've been running it that way for a long time, and when you take this off, there's hardly anything in there. It all gets captured inside of the 5-gallon bucket. On the bottom side of this lid, I did cut a little piece of plywood to keep the lid from caving in, and I've got a bucket inside of a bucket to keep the inside bucket from collapsing, because I've busted one bucket just by vacuuming up the spoil board and closed off the pipe. It collapsed that bucket in no time. But if you put a bucket inside of a bucket, that'll prevent that. It'll keep that inside bucket in a round shape and won't let it collapse. First time I dumped it, I stuck my hand in there to sweep out some dust and knock out the fool shocked out of me. So I put this aluminum tape down through there and did a crisscross manner, went around the lip and out, and I got that attached to a ground wire. Actually, it goes out to a ground rod, so that's why the aluminum tape is in there. So once I get it dumped, you can see the crisscross, and there's my little piece of aluminum. I strip back that wire and I just stick that right back to the edge and carry on. I don't have to dump it too often, so that's not too big of a headache. But it's finally 10:30 and we got 85 degrees and 68% humidity in here. So 10:30 in the morning, and we're already getting pretty warm. So let's go ahead and get busy. Okay, like I said, I've got a new project to get started today, so I'm going to go ahead and dive right into MillMage. First thing I need to do is build a little bit of a fence, because I'm going to push. I got my fence here too close to the. I got my fence here too close to the edge, because I lined this fence up with the pocket from surfacing this piece of plywood, and I surfaced it with a 1.5 inch bit. Well, that means that my 1/4 inch bits can't get all the way against the fence. So I'm going to set me a little project area further out in the middle of the table. The way I'm going to set that up, I'm going to go ahead and bring my gantry over here. I'm going to jog my gantry down here. I'm going to use a long piece of scrap. These scraps was rippings from a 2x4. I ripped down to a 1x1, and then I carved these channels out in them. I used these to create frames around my wooden flags. So it'd be like a frame, and these are just some of the offcuts. So they come in real handy for CNC fences, because you got a little channel right there you can screw into, and that backside will hold your workpiece, and your screws are a lot deeper, so it's that much harder to hit it with the bit. So it worked out pretty good for me. I'm just going to pop a screw in there right fast. One reason I like the plywood spoil board for this work hold method, because you don't, it's a lot harder to chew up this plywood than it is MDF. MDF will chew up real fast if you're using this method. So I'm just going to go ahead and move that over a little bit. We're going to jog that gantry back down. I'm going to move my bit against this scrap just like you're zeroing it. I'm spinning the bit by hand till it just barely starts to grab the wood on this scrap piece. And we're going to jog to the other end of this scrap. Now I'm just going to press that against the bit and pop a screw in. I want to go straight down because I don't want to put pressure on that bit. There. Some of these screws are starting to get worn out. I need to go buy me another bucket of screws. I wanted to go straight down with this screw because I didn't want to put any undue pressure on this bit because that can cause deflection in the bit, and that'll cause this piece to be not straight. That's not what I wanted. I want that straight across. That's the whole purpose of using the gantry. So it don't matter if the edge of my spoil board is straight or not. I want to make sure it's straight with the gantry. Now that we've got that set, I use a lot of oak wood to make those frames. So these do actually make better fences. There. Got a good work hold there. Now I'm just going to put one on top. Grab me a couple more screws. One more. I need a short one. I might have to cut one. This top one is short. It don't come past my material, so I can actually use this long one. Two screws per side's all you need. There. That's not going nowhere. Got a little gap here that I can touch the spoil board between the two work hold pieces. And I got a little gap over here that I can touch the spoil board and I can get around those work hold pieces. So that way I can use my calipers and I can measure out my thickness. This is 1.97 inches thick. 1.95 inches thick. So all right, we're going to fix that right now. That's 6.5 inches this way. So we're going to set up our workpiece. We're going to set up our material. In MillMage, we're going to come over here and set our material up. I'm going to go up here to File, Project Setup. All right, I'm going to make sure I'm in Imperial. I want to go to inches. And on my depth, we've got a 6.5. So I want to make sure that is 6.5. My thickness, what did I say that was? 1.97 and 1.95. And on the width, 8.5 inches. 8.5 inches. There we go. There's my material. Now, I need a vector because we're going to surface this booger. I'm going to align that to the bottom and I'm going to align that to the left. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to come over here. And that's going to be good. All right. We got us a vector here. So I'm going to do a new operation. I'm going to do a surfacing operation. You can see there we got a surfacing operation. We have a facing operation. Surfacing operations you normally use for flattening machines. This will turn on the material. I don't want that. I'm going to do a facing operation. All direction changes outside of the work area. I'm going to use that one. We're going to set that tool up. I'm going to choose the surfacing. This is a list of all the IDC bits. That's all the bits that I have in here right now as far as programmed for MillMage. Show that real fast. I think I showed this on another video, but all right, I looked up IDC Woodcraft, just done a Google search, and you see the IDC Woodcraft.com, IDC Woodcraft routers, CNC bits. The first option under that is database download. So I'm just going to click on the database download. When you go to the IDC Woodcraft database download, you'll see there was several options here. You got Vectric VCarve, Fusion 360, Carbide Create, Carve Code Maker, and MillMage. We're using MillMage, so we're just going to download that database. This is going to give us a full list of all the IDC Woodcraft and the Genie bits are in this database. So if you use Genie bits, here's your database. All right, we got that saved. Where did it go? Click that folder right there. It'll open the folder and highlight the file for you. So we can come out of there. Over here, we can load a library. Click load library, and in your downloads, there's your IDC Woodcraft database tools. You just click that and it opens right up, gives you the full list of bits in here. So once we have that, I know I've got a 1.5 inch surfacing bit with a 1/4 inch shank. That's the one I'm using. So I'm going to select that for the surfacing operation. Final depth. I want these trays to be 1.5 inches thick. I'm at 2 inches thick. Close enough. So final depth, I'm going to just put 1/2 inch, 0.5 inch. Depth per pass, I'm not scared to do 0.125. Zigzag, I'm going to plunge this because it's going to be, all its maneuvers is going to be off the material, so that doesn't matter. Step over. On this particular bit, my step over is going to be about 40%. I'm going to reduce that to 80 millimeters. 80 inches a minute. Spindle speed does not matter. I don't have one. Plunge. We'll do 20. Well, we'll do 20 inches a minute on the plunge. Again, it's going to be plunging off of the material. We'll hit OK. We'll make sure that toolpath is assigned to that vector. And this does have teeth on the bottom, so you see here it's zeroing against my material, centering the corner with the middle of that bit. If we run our playback, we got this. We can just watch this operation. You can see what it did right there. It came back off of the material to run its first pass. You see how it's changing directions off the material? That's what I want to see for a surfacing bit. So I'm good with that. That's a keyhole bit. I've done a video on it. I've got to get it edited. I showed how to do a keyhole slot in MillMage. Anytime you take your bit out, pull your collet nut and your collet out. Give them a good clean. Make sure there's no sawdust in there. Sawdust can get trapped in there. It can act as a lubricant, and you can have bit slip. You don't want your bit slipping down into the material, cutting deeper than you intended. You can break bits. There we go. Now let's zero this out. Again, I'm zeroing this out to the center of the bit. Is going to zero to the very corner of the material. Now let's move that down again. Move that down to 20 inches a minute. Go up a hair, over a hair. All right, I'm going to zero X, Y, and Z right there, but I'm going to run my Z speed down to 5 inches a minute. I'm going to spin that bit till I start hearing it rub like that. And then I'm going to zero it right there. Zero the Z. Now, I'm going to raise that, and we're going to start this operation. Let's clear my keyboard and everything else off of the spoil board. I'm not putting my dust shoe on, so I'm going to film this surfacing, and it's going to get pretty messy. If I had bits laying here, I wouldn't see it. Be covered in sawdust. Come through with my vacuum, suck them up, they're gone. What I need to do is put a magnet I got a magnetic dust shoe I made. I did a video on these dust shoes that I made in Fusion 360, and I've embedded magnets in them. I need to embed magnets on my attachments so when I'm sucking stuff up, it'll catch any metal pieces. Got my hand on the old crap button. We're going to move MillMage to the control mode. That's what I'm looking for. And I'm actually going to go to the override, and we're going to slow this down to start with. Got 80%. All right, cross our fingers and away we go. All right, cross our fingers and away we go. Come back and do another pass. Now what I typically would I'm going to go back to my edit mode. I'm going to enter those dimensions in my machine setup, because now I'm going to put 1.47. That will matter on our final pass. I made mention earlier I was doing a catch-all tray, and here it is. These are the catch-all trays I'm making today. I'm going to lay it on my blank. I got plenty of space all the way around. This tray is 7.5 inches wide, so I'm going to make me an oval shape in MillMage. Let's click the ellipse tool to make us a oval. We're going to make that 7.5 wide, 6 inches across. Let me pull it over here. With that shape selected, I hit P on the keyboard and it snaps it directly to the center of my material. There's my outside shape. First thing I want to do is create a circle. I want this circle to be 3.7 by 3.7. And I want that undo, select tool, and I want that perfectly in line there with the oval. And just so you can see what that is for, these are glass insulators. A lot of people collect these. That is 3.6 inches wide. So 3.7 will give us plenty of a clearance. See, it sits right down in there. It's got a little bit of play, but not too much. The inside of this one is 3.6. 3.61. I could go down to 3.65 inches just to make that smaller to start with. And we can go ahead and carve out the shade pocket. I'm calling that a shade pocket because we're using these for a lampshade. So once I get these carved out, I can try to fit that in there. If it's too loose, I can't glue that sawdust back in very easily. If it's too tight, all I have to do is come back over here and make this circle a little bit bigger, run that toolpath again to give me a little bit more room for this to sit in perfectly. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make this 3.65 inches by 3.65 inches, and that still could be a little loose, and that will be fine. I'm going to make me another circle to go inside here, and I want this circle 1.5 inches. Then I can select all of these and hit P. It centered everything back up fine. I'm going to make one more circle. This circle is going to be 0.75 by 0.75 inches, 3/4 inch. I need some toolpaths now. This is going to be a cutout. This is going to be a pocket. So let's do that first. I'm going to select both of these shapes. I'm going to select my 3-inch and my 1.5 inch. I'm going to click a new operation and I'm going to pocket that. I'm going to use the beast on this. So I'm going to close my surfacing bits. I'm going to open my flat end mill bit folder. And down here we'll find our hog and our beast. I use the beast for just about everything. I'm going to double click on that. The beast, we're going to do a 60% step over. Start depth is going to be 0. Final depth is going to be 1.25 inches. We're not going deep, just a little recess. And we're going to take that at full depth, 0.125 inches. We're going to have a zigzag entry type. Again, I'm going to do this at 80 inches a minute. I'm going to slow it down a little bit. We're going to plunge that at 40 inches a minute. I'm going with 80 because I can click the override in the control setting and boost that up 200%. I clicked on the pocket. It assigned that to these two vectors that I had selected. I've still got my surfacing pass on, so let's get rid of that. There. That's what I'm looking for. When we play this at full speed, you see how it gradually sloped into the material. And it'll keep hogging that out till she's done. This pocket, I want to be a boring operation. It's not very fun at all. We're just going to click bore. We're going to go down 1 inch. Depth per revolution, 0.125. Speed, I didn't select my tool. We're going to still, we can come down through here and we can find our flat end mill again, or we got the projects tools up here. It's also up here now. So every tool that you add to your project will be in this projects tools. So I can come up here and click my beast. That puts me at 100 inches a minute. I'm still going to go do 80. Plunge, 40. Going down an inch. Depth per revolution, 0.125. You can be pretty aggressive with the beast, and it'll do that. We'll have a little dowel that we can use for a different project later on, maybe. No, you sense in wasting all of that wood. I got one little dowel over here I made the other day, doing the same operation. Anyway, that'll be left there, and we can just snap that off. All right, now I need a rectangle. I am designing in imperial measurements. I need this rectangle to be, I'm going to make it 0.26 millimeters, or 0.26 inches tall. Length don't matter. All that's doing is carving me a little groove right through there. And I want that to be in the center. So I'm going to hold my shift. I'm going to select Control Z, select tool. I'm going to hold my shift. I'm going to select all the rest of these. We're just going to line it up. Everything's lined together. I'm going to do a pocket operation on that. Select tool. We're going to use the beast. Here, my final depth on this is going to be 1/4 inch. I'm going to do 0.125 inches per pass. So it should be done in 2 passes. It'll zigzag. I'm going to hit 50% stuff over, but it ain't going to matter. 80. I'm going to slow it down to 80 inches. Ramp. 40. Plunge 40. Those are not really going to matter that much, but now we got a tool path for that. Preview that. That creates us a little channel through there. That channel will slip under my shade pocket. This right here is going to be a profile operation. Select my tool. I'm still using the beast. And this is going to be at full depth. So we're going to go to 1.47, I think I said the material thickness was. And I'm going to go 0.125 inches per pass. We're going to zigzag that. We're going to go outside the line. 80 inches a minute. 40 ramp. 40 plunge. All of that looks good. So we're going to agree to that. Assign that. We're going to do a preview. There's only one thing missing in this right there on that path. I'm going to need some tabs. So let's create some tabs. I'm going to go to my tab tool. Just going to drop a tab here and there. We'll sand those off later. It'll be all right. In the tool path, our tabs are enabled, but I don't want full retraction. I'm going to do partial retraction. We're going to do 1/4 inch. We're going to do a 1/4 inch by a 1/4 inch. They're going to be a 1/4 inch tall and a 1/4 inch wide. Now you can see we got some work holes there. I need one more operation. For this operation, I need my pocket. My pocket, I'm going to do an offset of this. I want to offset inward 1/2 inch. When you do an offset operation, MillMage and Lightburn both puts 50 million nodes in there. Typically, I do not like nodes. But in this particular scenario, I like that there are so many nodes. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select a bunch of these nodes. I'm going to come down through here, somewhere right in here. I'm going to select all these nodes. I'm just going to hit D on the keyboard for delete. Let's delete a few more. Let's get about right there. D for delete. Now, since I had so many nodes, I pretty much got a straight line up through here. That worked. That's going to work for me for this particular scenario. On this line right here, I'm going to hit M on the keyboard. That's going to drop me a node at dead center. I'm going to hover over that node and hit C because I want a smooth curved node there. So you see it turned red. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to pull it down. Control Z. Why are you not smooth? I clicked on it. It's working fine. All right, I got these a curve. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to click over here to deselect everything. That's acting screwy today. All right, I selected that node. I selected that handle right there. That's not a node, that's a handle. I've got that handle selected. Select, shift, select. I got both of those selected by holding the shift key. Now I'm going to hold the shift key and I'm going to drag these straight out. So now both these handles have been pulled out to the same dimension. So this is a uniform dimension all the way around. And there's my pocket. Now for this, I'm going to need a pocket operation, but I'm going to need a bowl bit. So let's go select our tools. I'm not using a ball nose. I'm going to find that under the bull nose / bowl. This is the bit that I've got is the IDC Woodcraft 1-inch bowl bit with a 1/4-inch shank. That's what I'm using. Start depth is 0. Final depth is 3/4 inch. I'm going to be very, very light with this bit. 0.025, 0.03 inches per pass. Step over is going to be very light at 6%. It's going to take forever. We've got time. Since I'm taking such a light pass, it removes all of those witness marks and gives me a nice, smooth finish. Hit OK there. Let me open that back up. If I had done something more aggressive, like 20% step over, but you could handle it. Still a pretty good finish. Since I'm going so light, I'm going to do a 20% step over. And we'll see. How long is that going to take? It says 18 minutes. And that is for everything. 18.5 minutes. All right, with the 20% step over, we're going to see how that reacts. We're done with the design. Now that I've got this designed, if something happened on my next piece with the servicing and the numbers did not add up perfectly, I'm going to move that profile to the last operation. On this profile, I don't have to open this tool again. I don't have to open this profile toolpath again. I got my numbers right here. I can change my numbers right here to change my depth. I like that. So first thing, I got my face turned off. I'm going to do a pocket, a bore. We're going to name these toolpaths so we can keep up with what's what. I'm going to call that cable track because that's what that is. That's for a wire to run through there. That's a cable track. This pocket right here, that's a shade pocket. There's my shade pocket. We know what a face is. We don't need to do that. Bore, I could rename this to socket hole because that's going to receive a light socket. And that's my tray pocket. That's for my catch-all tray. Profile, we know what the profile is. It's going to be a cutout. And that's to cut the whole project out. So just that quick, I've got this sucker designed and it's ready to carve out. So, cut out. We're not going to do that yet. Tray pocket, that's going to require a bit change. So I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to do these three: shade pocket, socket hole, and cable track. I'm going to do all those three in the same operation. So let's go to our control view. And you can see those three operations. You can see that that cable track is going to come below my shade pocket. And you can see the boring operation is going to screw right down into that material for 1 inch, I think I said. So let's go ahead and jog this up and get it zeroed out and change this bit out. So now we're in control. I'm going to go ahead and go to my override. We're going to slow that down a little bit to start with. And we're going to jog this forward. Clean my collet and my collet nut. I do not have my probe set up yet. So we're just going to zero this by hand. I do this on G-Sender a lot too. So again, I'm just going to spin this bit till it starts grabbing the wood. Once I start hear it grab the wood, I'm going to zero the Z. I'm also spinning the bit so I can see the inside of the flute and make sure that the center of this bit is squared up with the corner of the material. And it is. Right there, I'm going to zero all. X, Y, and Z have been zeroed. Now there's one more thing I can do. I can raise this bit. I can go back, or I can go over here to my rubber band frame, and we can frame this out to see where it's going to land. Let's frame this out and see what it's going to look like. Okay, it's framing that operation. So I'm going to go back to my go-to. I'm going to go back to my edit. I'm going to turn these three off. I'm going to turn the profile on. Let's go back to our control mode. And let's frame this out. And I can see that everything is bound within the material. So we're good to go. Go back to my go-to XY. Go back to my edit. Turn profile off. Keep face off. Turn on shade, socket, and cable track. Go back to my control. Clean off the spoil board. We are done with the keyboard now for a moment. Do not forget to turn the router on. I'll keep it about 2.5 right now. I might adjust that as we go. Let's see what's going to happen when I hit the start button. All right, that operation performed flawlessly. I'm going to jog this out of the way real quick. I'm going to grab my insulator. We're going to make sure it fits. And that fits like it was made for it. I'm actually glad I shrunk that down a little bit. That is perfect. All right, move that out of the way. Raise my Z. Bring the gantry back towards me. We're going to change this bit out for the pocket bit, for the bowl bit. Make sure you clean your collet and your collet nut. Grab the bowl bit. You don't want your bowl bit plumb against the collet. You want a little bit sticking out, but not a whole lot. Lock that down. We do not zero the X and the Y, but we do need to re-zero the Z. Let's move that down, spin it until it starts grabbing a little bit of the wood, and move it down here to the corner. Because this corner is going to be cut out, so it don't matter if we scar it up a little bit. There. All right, zero the Z only. Raise the Z. Go to X and Y. I'm going to raise that Z a little bit more. It's got its 0 point. I'm going to go back to my edit window. Turn these 3 toolpaths off. Turn my tray pocket on. Go back to my control window. And go to my override. I'm going to slow this down a good bit. Just because it is a 1-inch bit. I want to make sure I ease into this. So let's see how this is going to go. My hand's on the stop button. All right, I need to speed that up some. I'm at 150% speed right now. 170%. I'm slowing the router down. I don't have any burn marks, but I'm just listening to it. I'm listening for what the router wants to be. Okay, you see those witness marks in there? My step over needs to be lower, and my step down needs to be greater, just so it cuts deeper, but the tracks need to be closer together to get rid of those witness marks. That's okay though, these will sand out pretty easy. But I'll have those numbers fixed for the next trade that I do. All right, everything's coming out good. This is probably the last pass. I slowed it down a little bit on the last pass. They still got a pretty good smooth finish in there. We're going to go back to our go-to tab. We're going to send that back to its workspace home that we set. We're going to jog that bit way up. And we're going to do a change out for the hog bit. We're going to go back to the hog bit for the final pass to cut this part out. The bit is warm, but I can still hold it. So that tells you, as long as you can hold your bit, you know your numbers are pretty close to being where they need to be. If your bits are too hot to hold, you are running your spindle way too fast, or you're running your gantry way too slow. One or the other. You got two options there. Clean out the collet nut. Put the beast in place. I'm going to make sure I can touch the spoil board after I run that Z up again. 100. Make sure I can touch the spoil board without the nut crashing into the material, and I can. So I'm going to go back to my go-to. I'm going to rehome that booger. Now we're going to drop this Z down and re-zero the Z because I just did a bit change. I'm going to go back to my Z speed. Run that back down to 10 inches a minute. Spin the bit. I feel it grabbing the wood, so I'm going to zero the Z right there. X and Y is already on the Z, so I could Z all, but this is a good practice just to only zero the Z. Only zero the Z. Bring that bit up. I'm going to go back to my edit window. I'm going to turn off the tray pocket. I'm going to turn on this cutout. I'm going to highlight this cutout, and you can see I got a depth set here of 1.47 inches. We're just going to measure that one more time for good measure to make sure that's accurate. And in order to do that, I've got to jog the gantry out of the way. So I got to go to the Move tab. Jog that gantry out of the way. Loosen that sawdust out of there. 1.47. All right. Good enough. Go back to my go-to, send it back home. Go to my control window, turn the router on, and let's go for the last pass. I'm going to slow it down a little bit, about 50%, just to see how it's going to react. I like it. I'll speed it up. Right now it's still ramping. I'm going to speed up the router a bit. It's ramping in. You can see we've cut through the material up here, but the bit's still touching wood, so we're good to go. Alrighty, looking good. Except for my witness marks in here, and I'm going to have to do a little bit of sanding there. 20% step over is too much for that bowl bit. Sand it up real quick and get some clear coat on it. Get my socket in there, box this sucker up, and get it in the mail. Now, but this, I'm done with the CNC. I don't have homing switches on this unit. I don't have homing switches on my CNC, so before I shut it off, I want to make sure I park it in the rear right corner. That way when I fire MillMage back up, it zeroes to that point. It wouldn't even let me crash it. So as long as I'm in that position, when I start MillMage, it knows that's zero, and I'm good to go. Before I shut it off, I need to go in there and get one of my sockets to make sure that's going to fit. These are the sockets I get. I like these. They come with a little LED bulb. They got these little plastic ears that I can just reach in here and break, slam off. They break off that easy. You get them from Lowe's. That looks like it's going to be too freaking small. Everything can't go perfect all the time. I'm going to go ahead and break this out. Get my vacuum and clean that hole out a little bit. With that wire, it needs to be just a little bit bigger. But that's going to work for right now. Where'd my insulator go? There you are. All right, let's cross our fingers. Okay. With that wire, it needs to be just a little bit bigger. But that's going to work for right now. Where'd my insulator go? There you are. Yep, that's going to be perfect. Once I get that, that's going to be just fine. Next, I'll make this hole just a little bit bigger. 0.8, I think the other one was. And that's just so that wire can fit down in there. Just a little bit. Just to make that a little bit lower. It don't have to be, but this is going to work. Yep, that's going to be perfect. Once I get that. Nope. Now what I could do, I could go ahead and make that a little bit bigger and bore it out. I'm not going to do that this time. We're going to leave it alone. We're going to leave well enough alone. Because it's still going to work just the same way. I just take two of my clamps off. Let's pick this sucker up and see if it went all the way through, because I didn't vacuum out the profile cut to see if it went all the way through. My tabs look good. I think a 1/4 inch might have been a little too thick on the tabs. I'll make them 1/8 of an inch next time on this project. 1/4 inch wide is good. 1/4 inch thick might be a little too much. But we're just going to give it a little tap. Now, if you notice when I was tapping those, I was tapping down from the bottom. The tabs are on the bottom. You want to tap the bottom. You never want to tap the top because that can cause peel out. As long as you tap the bottom, it's going to snap this direction instead of snapping this way and peeling off. If you have the top facing down and you popped it, that tab right there could peel off and cause some scarring on the bottom of your part. You do not want that. I think that looks pretty good. Let's get this sanded up. If you don't get rid of those tool marks, they will really show up after you finish it. I do like to go all the way through my grits. Sometimes I'll start with a 60, sometimes I'll start with an 80. Depends on what the wood looks like, what kind of wood it is. And I'll go all the way up to 240. Then I'll clear coat it. Then I'll sand it again with a 240. And then I'll clear coat it again. Still got a little bit more sanding to do, but everybody knows about the sanding, so I'm sure somebody sitting around sanding a block of wood makes great content, but there we go. I'm going to laser engrave my logo on the bottom, get this clear coated, out the door. And there's our finished product. We have a nightlight catch-all tray fit for a lineman. Okay, there's another look at MillMage and how you can start a project and carry it to completion all the way in one program. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. It's gotten hot out here. I am sweating. Well, it's 89.8 with 60% humidity. So, but now I'm going to go in the house and take me a shower, and we're going to call it a weekend. Y'all have a great weekend. Stay tuned for the next one.